Okay, guys, it's very lovely to meet you guys via videos again. So today's topic is relatively easy. So today I will basically be talking about the introduction to machine learning in Python. More specifically, I will be introducing you guys to scikit-learn. Um, Before that, I want to do a quick review first. So the review I want to do is about the basic categories of machine learning algorithms. So hopefully like you guys have already like read through the slides here. Now let me get back to the diagram here. So on this diagram, as we can see, there are three types of machine learning algorithms. This first type is the so-called supervised learning, and the second type is unsupervised learning. The final type is going to be reinforcement learning. Let me briefly describe like each of the algorithm here. So for supervised learning, actually, let me compare and contrast the supervised and unsupervised learning. So for the supervised and unsupervised learning, the key difference lies in the data set. For supervised learning, the data set not only has features, but also have labels. So features are just the independent variables you guys have already learned in the linear regression. And the labels are just going to be the dependent variables, or the so-called outcome variables. And what the supervised learning algorithms essentially are trying to do is just trying to capture the relationship between the features and the labels. Now onto the unsupervised learning. So for unsupervised learning, basically the data actually do not have like labels. So the data set only has features. So and you are not really trying to capture the relationship between the features and the labels. Now let me like describe more about the subcategories like underneath supervised learning and unsupervised learning algorithms. So for the supervised learning algorithms, it can be further divided into two subgroups. One subgroup being the classification tasks. So here you are basically trying to predict a category, so a categorical variable. Just think about male and female. So that's examples of categories, right? And then for the supervised learning algorithm, another subgroup or subcategory is going to be regression tasks. So here you are trying to predict a number. So in other words, your labels are going to be a continuous number. So for a realistic example, just think about the scenario that you are trying to predict the weight of a like student in China. So that's going to be a regression task. Then for more details about unsupervised learning, so there are two major types of unsupervised learning. One is clustering. So what clustering does is that it's actually just trying to divide the data set into different subgroups only based on the features. So remember now, like in the data set, we only have the features. So that's clustering. Then for unsupervised learning, we also have like the so-called dimensionality reduction. So here you are just trying to extract the most useful features. And one example of that, like one specific example of such dimensionality reduction algorithm is going to be PCA, principal component analysis. So if you guys are interested, you can like look look on the internet about PCA. Now, finally, we also have reinforcement learning algorithm. For reinforcement learning algorithm, the math behind it is really complicated. So I don't expect you guys to know anything about like the math behind the reinforcement learning algorithms. I only expect you guys to know about the intuition. So for reinforcement learning, it's actually just something like human learning. So in reinforcement learning, we have an environment and we also have an agent. So this figure here is depicting like a typical reinforcement learning problem. So in a typical reinforcement learning problem, we have environment and we also have agent. And also the environment also have different states. So in such a problem, the agent is going to take an action to the environment. So, or in other words, the agent is just going to interact with the environment. And so of course, the environment is going to be influenced by that action, right? And in return, the environment is going to feed a reward to the agent. And also the environment is going to change from the existing state to a new state. So the agent is able to rate both a new state as well as a reward. So what the agent is trying to do is that by the trial and error, the agent is able to learn like under which scenario, like what are the payoffs of all his like available actions. Like for example, he learns that he's going to, so let's assume that the agent can either go left, right, upward, or downward. So there are 4 actions. So we are reinforcement learning. Ultimately, the agent is going to learn that, like for example, at state 1 now, at state 1, the action of going left is going to give him the payoff of let's say 1, and then going right is going to be like giving him the payoff of -1, and then going upward is going to give him the payoff of 2, and going downward is going to give him the payoff of -2. So he will basically decide that now for this current state 1 we currently observe, then the optimal action is going to be the upward action. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is that in reinforcement learning, the agent is trying to form a dictionary like for each state action pair. So essentially he knows that he learns about the payoff of each state action pair, and then he will be choosing the optimal action like of the current state based on that payoff dictionary. Yeah, that's the review. Now let's get to a notebook here.